of young people, but they all got straight shortly thereafter, very quickly. One, Clarence Micheal. Denton is a professor, but Clarence Micheal was a fighter, both figuratively and literally. He was born in Stockton Alley in Baltimore City without any indoor plumbing, one of 10 children. But he moved to a not much better street. He had his baby brother Perrin with him, and the neighbor said, "Here come those alley folks. You know they'll never amount to anything." Wow. And he was 12 years old. He made up his mind then that his family was going to be somebody. Never give up on our young people, no matter what the circumstance, because Perrin Micheal became the first African-American congressman elected from the state of Maryland. Clarence Micheal's classmate was Horace Van Bond, the father of Julian Bond. And it was my brother Clarence Micheal III, who was one of the co-founders of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee with Dr. King in 1961 in Atlanta. Julian, we owe you an incredible debt. You used your skill and acumen, and that's what my father did in all of these things. He relied upon Horace Van Bond, who was president of Lincoln University, who gave the intellectual, the researchers so that they could come back and fight the government. Clarence Micheal said also respect women. Oh, did he? He made us get up and open the door for my mother. And if we didn't, we'd get a left hook. Denton doesn't mention some of those things. And at the same time, he, upon graduating from Lincoln University, his classmates were Thurgood Marshall, Langston Hughes, who did me a lullaby, and who gave me my first name, Michael. They called my father Mike, and therefore, when I was born, Langston Hughes said, "We'll call him Michael." But isn't that incredible? And then a young African came to him and said, "Clarence, one day I'm going to be head of all of Africa." And that was Kwame Nkrumah. Wow. And that moment, I think, Julian, you were there in '57 for Kwame Nkrumah's. Growing up in this state, you only saw the Little Rascals and Amos and Andy on television. And here I saw Kwame Nkrumah make Princess Elizabeth bow down and kiss his ring. I became a new person, and Clarence Micheal was responsible for that, and that's what propelled Julia to move ahead. And then Benazikwe, also a Lincoln graduate, who became the first Governor General of Nigeria. And that's why there's an order to things, and God moves heaven and earth. We must remember the cloud of witnesses, John Morcell, Henry Lee Moon, who Denton replaced, Roy Wilkins, who gave of his time and effort, and Walter White, and of course Pickens, who they would send, who was executive secretary. And these were the people who made the difference. I know I have to stop, but I'm going to read one thing to you, because my father said, be accurate. And that's one sentence. No, it isn't long. I heard someone say, oh. He and my mother, he always called her his princess, and men always do this. He said, your beautiful letter, so swell, this is 1935, so sweetly indicative of your dear self, is in my pocket. You're asking me to let you keep it until you come home. And he said, I'm happy to know that you are better, and I do not feel ashamed or sorry that you have told Miss Carroll, meaning her grandmother, about my love. My father, they had an 8-year courtship. But more importantly, he said that they held hands going to church, and every Sunday. And more importantly, though, he never spared the rod. He made sure, he said he believed in the Second Amendment. And so that he was there with all of the branch presidents, and there were special people, Medgar Evers and Marilee Evers in Mississippi. Because I'm Mississippian as well. My family, part of the family, comes from Carrollton and Greenwood. And this lady with this hat, who was speaking earlier, reminded me of Miss Vera Peggy. Some of you might remember her. She was a leader, youth member in the state NAACP. I only say these things and get Denton's books because we've got to know our history. This young man, Ben Jealous, it was in him before he was born. His grandparents, the Grants who were part of Lily Mae Jackson's army, a freedom fighter. She said she wasn't an activist, she was a freedom fighter. And she believed that, as she used to argue with Dr. Du Bois, she used to say, well, the domestics and the hard carriers and just the average folks who might not have the PhDs, they want freedom too, Dr. Du Bois. And we've got to include everyone. And that's why the Baltimore branch, with the help of your grandparents, became the largest branch in the country. The other thing is that not only did they just sell memberships, and also when I would try to go off my paper route, it was your grandfather that made sure I stayed on it and kept going back home. I had called my grandmother, but also his mother. I remember the day she walked into the branch with your grandparents to be one of the plaintiffs with Thurgood Marshall and Juanita Jackson Mitchell as their lawyers to integrate what it was actually called the White Female Western High School for Baltimore City. And she stuck into that and will be forever indebted to her. And that's why you commend this young man, because he could have done a lot of things. You see how well the head of UPS knew him. Let's keep him here, because he's committed to the struggle, and his lovely young wife is committed as well. And this is what the NAACP needs, is you. The final person I'll end with is this young woman here, Tessa Hill Aston, who is from Baltimore. I'm the new president. Lily Jackson says she had what was called pushability, and you need that. And don't rest on your laurels during this time when we think we're comfortable with President Obama. Remember the Tea Party crowd. My father was a greatly religious man, and he would always, before we got to a battle, he would say, harder yet may be the fight, often wrong may yield to might, wickedness a while may reign, Satan's cause may seem to gain, but there's a God above who rules with hand of power and heart above. And if I'm right, he'll fight my battle, and we shall be free someday.